All right, welcome everybody to this edition of Breaking Absolutes. Really excited today to be talking with Tommy Karevik, and I'll ask him to keep me honest on my pronunciation there because it's as you know, it's my weak suit. But Tommy is known to most of the folks who probably follow this channel as the current lead singer for Camelot. What might be slightly lesser known is his work with former band Seventh Wonder. Tommy's also been tapped at least 3 times to work with Ayreon who we spoke with last week on concept records. And this will be a theme for some of the things we talk about today because Tommy is particularly adept at conveying narrative with music. It's not the only thing, of course, he can do. But folks will know that that's a bit of a bias of mine. And so I pay a lot of attention to how a vocalist communicates that and inhabits a character if that's what's required. And I don't know anybody doing it better than Tommy. And you've heard me kind of invoke this idea that I'm not given to hyperbole, and that's not. And I'll talk about some, at least from my perspective, why I think that's true for him and get his input on his approach there. A couple of sparklers about the band. The most recent record, Shadow Theory, entered the Billboard Hard Rock charts at #2. It peaked at #1 on the Amazon Hard Rock and Metal charts. Those are not the only chart positions, and not that chart positions are the measure of a group, but it's one data point that is very suggestive of this band's sort of place in the community, how beloved they are, how good their music is. So I wanted to open with that. They've also been on bills with the very best metal bands on the planet, bands like Iron Maiden. So they have the respect of their peers, which is, I think, also an important note to make. So with that as my preamble, let me bring Tommy on and we'll get started. Tommy, welcome.
Thank you so much, Peter. I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm pleased that you were willing to spend some time with us. Before we kind of get into the rest of it, I ask this question of a lot of folks now, but how have you weathered the pandemic? Has it provided any sort of silver lining for you? Any things you've accomplished or major detractors?
Yeah, I mean, I came from a period that was a lot of work, a lot of grinding it out, kind of couple of years there, and I don't know if you know, but I was a firefighter back in Sweden before, and I always kind of tried to juggle two things at once, like the music, or 3 things: music, my family, and the firefighting. Like, so it's been a lot of work. Like, past 10 years was just crammed. Like, when I wasn't in the fire station working, I was on tour. I was writing music at night, or I was flying to Canada or to see my girlfriend at the time, which is now my wife, which is a beautiful thing in itself.
Yeah.
But so we were challenged. I was challenged for a long time. Then right before COVID, I decided to move to Canada and pursue music full time, and be with my wife more. And so for me, COVID was kind of a little bit of a blessing. I got to come to this new country, got to be with my wife every day, and I mean, yeah, the world shut down, but at least I was in the right, I was with my wife and not somewhere else.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of it was a lot of just redefining what life is, I think, too. Like, life was all about work for me and music. And then during the pandemic, I was chopping wood, I was doing labor outside and gardening and just stuff that I never really did before. I love it. It's beautiful. And then we got to really come down to earth, I think, for the first time in a very long time.
Yeah. I've heard that same thing mentioned more than once. And I think the more we kind of look back later on as not that anybody would ever have wanted this kind of thing, but there's been some reconnection, which is ironic since you and I are doing this whole thing virtually. But the people being able to spend more time with loved ones, a little bit less emphasis on work. Even people who work a day job who no longer have had to commute and spend 2 hours on the freeway. Um, so I appreciate those thoughts. It was, by the way, one of the things I was going to ask you, because I saw in your backstory that you were a firefighter, which is a non-trivial job. Is that, and you say you did that for a long time. Is that something you've had to kind of put away, or is that still something you do on occasion?
No, I think I'm done with it, to be honest. I did it for almost 20 years. I started really young and worked full time, and I it's really one of the most wonderful things I've ever done, and I don't regret it at all. Like, I made some amazing friends, got to stay fit, working, got to experience a lot of things that are a little bit extraordinary, but
Yeah.
but it is a heavy job. I mean, it's a tough job, and just having to wake up in the middle of the night so many times, just I think it's not, maybe not the best for your health. And after 20 years, I coming out of it, um, I feel way more healthy, way more refreshed, and just like, it was kind of like you were in a cloudy haze for 20 years,
Yeah.
because you never really slept. It's like having little ones for 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is the requirement in Sweden? You're from Sweden, right?
I'm from
Is
Sweden.
the requirement there the same as it is in the States, where you are on for a period of time and you're on call 24/7 and then you have periods off, or is it managed differently?
It's kind of like that. Yeah, I mean, you when you go to work a shift at the fire station, you have to stay at the fire station, of course.
Yeah.
And it's 10 hours or 14 hours or 24 hours, and then it's a schedule that rolls. So you have a couple of days off here and there, and then you're on for 24 hours, and then you have a day off, and then you're on for 14. So it's like, yeah, when you're there for 24 hours, I mean, it's that's a long time to be at work, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and you have to be kind of on the ready, which
yeah,
can have there's a certain emotional tension, I would imagine.
yeah, I mean, I think in the beginning it was for sure. Then, of course, you get used to it like
Okay.
everything else,
Yeah.
but it's something I definitely miss. I mean, I think I will always miss it, but at the same time, I also want to stay healthy and I want to do other stuff in life, right?
Well, and you've got an increasingly demanding career as a musician, which most of the people on this call and this stream are very happy about. So the more you make music, the happier many people are going to be. But having said
Oh,
that,
that's
like
true.
it's super cool that you did. It's one of the nobler professions. These are the people who run into danger. So there's a lot to be said for that. And I suspect that you've got experiences that inform the maturity of how you approach things. I don't know if I don't want to draw untrue correlations, but you do so much storytelling and there's a lot of emotion in many of these songs, and we'll talk about a few of them. Are you does this life experience as a firefighter ever inform how you talk about grief or loss in your music?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that. It's an interesting thing for sure. I've always been, generally, like, in music speaking, I've always been, um, it's all about emotion for me. Like, this since the very beginning, it has to be emotional.
Mm.
If I don't, and if it's something I've experienced, it's easy to tell it. If or someone around me has experienced, I pick up on the emotion a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that helps for sure, and being able to put myself in the mindset of someone else. But I think I've always been that way, and I think maybe that's also why I chose to be a firefighter. Uh,
Yeah,
partly.
yeah, I think that's actually a really interesting thought. Yeah, I can see that. I'm no psychologist, but it seems of a provable truth that if you're the kind of person who has a lot of empathy for people, taking a role or an occupation where you'd be helping people, you know, be an obvious path. Um, before we get deeper into your musical life, I also saw that you in college you studied nature and science.
Yeah.
What were you a biology major? What was
No,
there?
no, I don't actually know the terms because
Okay.
I did what was required of me in school. Like I wasn't I didn't go to university, for example. I started firefighting right away. That's why I already done it for 20 years.
Oh yeah,
So,
you're a
but
young man still.
yeah, I'm pushing 40. Uh,
Hey, 40's fine.
yeah, I keep telling myself that too. Yeah, no, I'm fine. I don't know. I did that, but it was actually my mom and my granddad that suggested this is something that will probably serve you if you want to go further in life and do and
Yeah.
study more. And I just rolled with it. I didn't have anything that I really wanted to do except for being a firefighter. So, and I knew that from a really early age. I maybe like a couple years old when my mom asked me what I wanted to be, and that's all I said from then on. So I don't know. I think I just dictated it. When you kind of put something into the universe and or out to the universe, and it just makes its way a certain way.
Yeah. Well, so in that vein, there had to have been some early sort of uh, pollination with music, because that's the major path it seems like you've also been on. Where did that come into play?
Oh my. Uh, I know kind of where it started for me, and it's interesting that I'm now in a band in Camelot, in a band like Camelot that is very theatrical, because I know my mom took me to when I think I was 12 or something. She took me to the Phantom of the Opera
Yeah.
in Stockholm, and needless to say, I was blown away. Like at I was just blown away. Honestly, I was. I remember still vividly some of the scenes, like when the chandelier comes down, and when the masquerade, and when they come on the boat, when they row through the
Yeah.
smoke, and the songs and everything. I'm just like I can still put myself there, and I think that must have been when it kind of started, like that interest started.
Yeah.
But I didn't start singing uh, professionally, or more like as a hobby. I didn't start that until I was 15, 16, maybe 17. So I don't know what happened in between there, but something grew. Like a little
Yeah.
seed. Yeah.
Well, so let me ask. That's a really interesting story that I want to come back to around Phantom of the Opera. But did you, as you started to get into music more, have you done any sort of formal vocal training, or is this all just sort of um, self development?
I'm actually a little bit embarrassed to say I haven't done a lot of training
Yeah.
formally. Of course, I've practiced, but I haven't. I wish I would have done more uh, formal vocal training, especially especially starting to tour later on. That when you need to know some stuff and be prepared for touring, uh, and you need to know how your voice works and how the voice works in general, right? Um, and I think I've taken 2 lessons in my life, and that's it. And one
Yeah.
was fairly recently when I had to do something because I was like, oh, my voice is I just can't do what I want to do, and so I did that. I went with my wife to her at the time, vocal coach, and had a session, and from then it kind of just changed again. It just helped me a lot. But I've always been, and I'm also a little bit embarrassed to say that, but I've always been uh, a little bit afraid to show my weakness as a singer to anyone, even to myself.
Yeah.
So like I hate singing to myself, and if it sounds like shit, I don't want to sing, because I judge myself.
Yeah.
you
I
know,
hear you. I hear you.
yeah. So it can be the most beautiful thing to sing when it works out, and it can be the most horrible thing to have to sing when it doesn't feel right, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I I've been really cautious. Like I've been cautious. I haven't like wanted to expose myself to anyone, or like, and that means you can't grow the same way that you could have. So I think I that's one thing I regret. I should have started earlier. I mean, just get over myself and my fears, and just have someone correct the stuff that you don't do that's good for you.
Yeah. Well, I'll say a couple of things. I have done some formal vocal training, and it's when you get the right teacher. And by that, I don't mean that there are certain vocal trainers or vocal coaches who are um, clearly better than others. I think that's less true. I think it's more about finding a good match, because there's a lot of people who teach variations on some of the core techniques, which, by the way, many of those, at least from my perspective, you do instinctively, which isn't to say you wouldn't benefit from training. You might. It's not, that's a personal choice. But a lot of what you're doing is, and we'll get into some specific examples, is really good. And then if you decide to go, find a trainer, it may open up some things to you. I appreciate your honesty about, you're hardly alone as a vocalist and feeling some insecurity about letting anybody ever hear you when you're pitchy, or, the voice isn't kind of behaving the way you hope. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. And I will say this for everybody. There's a good example of this. Idina Menzel sang the big "Let It Go" song from the Disney thing live at a New Year's Eve show, and was freezing cold from Times Square, and she wasn't perfect, and she just got lit up by social media for being less than perfect. One, it's a biological instrument, so like it has a unique set of um, behaviors and considerations relative to other kinds of instruments. Number two, it was like, I can't remember the temperature, so there was all of these sort of pressing factors. And the same is true for a vocalist like yourself is on tour. And I've said this to other vocalists that I sort of consider in this sort of the upper echelon of vocalists, particularly in progressive metal, where the regimen's usually really athletic. I mean, the music is not just simple to sing; it's written to be big. Not always, but you're touring. You're in a new venue almost every night. You're competing with so much noise. A lot of times you don't have sleep. A lot of times you don't have the best diet. Like there's a litany of things that impact the voice. Then to come under the scrutiny of people that don't, where it doesn't sound like the album. These are folks that I don't have a lot of patience for, because
Right.
I appreciate your honesty there, but I will say I've seen you live a few times, and you kill it live. So whatever you're doing in preparation is working, at least to some degree.
Thank you. I mean, I'm very adamant about being prepared. And that's another thing. I'm really not. I don't think I'm the best singer or the best performer if I can't practice it. Like I need to be practice what
Yeah.
I'm gonna do, because it's like it's always kind of like that. People just think that singers can they can just sing anytime. They can sing anytime, anything in any key, and without any preparation. So it's like it's kind of like you're a comedian, be funny,
Yeah.
right? A little bit like that. And it's like it never worked like that for me. Like um either I can't relax, or I need to warm up, or I need to know that this is the key that I can sing in, and be prepared. I mean, that's how I am good. I am prepared, and I do a lot of preparation work. Like before a tour, I make sure I know all the lyrics when I'm vacuuming. I so I don't have to think about it. So because there's always this element on tour, there's the element of surprise every moment, right?
Yeah.
You need to be able to just be in your zone without thinking about it. And then I practice the songs so I can do the set maybe twice a day. So I know that I have some juice when the show is over.
Yeah.
Because if I exert myself one night, it's going to be tougher the next night, and then it's going to be even tougher the next night. And I've
Right.
done that, and I know that. So I try to, and also placement of notes. I try to place them, uh, and this is something I learned more just from myself. Like where are the grading notes, and where are the notes that they take me, like they make me tired, right? Like I need to find a placement for the note that doesn't always that sounds like the note I want to do, but it's a little more easy on me.
Yeah. No, those are all really smart techniques that
Yeah.
that you've kind of grown into just by having to do it. And I think there's obviously talent and natural raw ability, but I think it commends you well um, that you talk so much about preparation. To use a sports analogy, my favorite NFL football quarterback was Peyton Manning. And it wasn't because he had the strongest arm or was the fastest. It was because he prepared like nobody prepared. Uh, and I think that that's an undervalued virtue for a vocalist. Um, so I love hearing that. I think that you know, that actually explains to me why when I've seen you, it's been so good. By the way, as I said before, if you'd missed a note, I'm one of those for whom that's just part of the charm of live music. So,
Yeah.
um, but okay, so let's dive into some of the actual music. I think unless I missed like my own understanding and what I was able to sort of read, your first really meaningful group was Seventh Wonder.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you came into that group. They had already released a record, but you came in, I think, to do the tour, right?
Yeah, we didn't really do touring. Like the first show was the release party for the album Become, which was their first album. But
Okay.
the singer was no longer in the band, so I had to just basically, with short notice, rehearse the songs and do this. And that was my first live experience ever, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. So it was like, okay, I just got to
That's
learn
pretty
this.
intense.
Yeah, and then I don't know if I did a good job, to be honest, but good enough, I think. Um,
So, but you did a good enough job that you stayed with that group for quite a while. You continued to record. The first record was "Waiting in the Wings,"
yep,
where you were the vocalist.
that's true. Yep.
Um, and there's so much Seventh Wonder material that we can't cover it all. So I kind of want to hit on a few specific things. That record, by the way, was received really, really well. In no small part, I think, because of what you brought to the music in terms of your voice. But the next record, Mercy Falls, was a concept album. And I wanted to ask before we get into that side of it, like once you joined on with Seventh Wonder, what was your participation in the songwriting process? I know
As,
it's different
what
for every band.
before I sorry.
No, so for the Mercy Falls,
Yeah, yeah.
when
Oh,
you started getting into those once you were there.
yep. Well, me and Andreas Blomqvist, which is the bass player, we wrote all the lyrics together because we came up with um the concept. Like I remember we're sitting in my little small apartment, like bachelor apartment in just outside of Stockholm, and we were having red wine for some reason. I don't drink red wine, but it gets your creative juices flowing, I guess.
Yeah.
And we just wrote the script that night to that album, and of course it developed later into what it is. But that's kind of the where we I think we already have like scenes and everything for the songs, and we didn't have any music, but we had the story we wanted to tell, and we were stoked, right? We were like, yeah, this could be really good, because there's a lot of room, I thought, for emotion in something like this. Like there's a lot of storytelling with an emotional aspect, I guess. So I was stoked, uh, and I think on that album more so than the previous album, I started writing more of the music too. Um, with all the instruments. But at that time I only had MIDI, and I didn't really play guitar, so I kind of programmed hide and seek on my um, in my DAW, and I just had I think I couldn't program the guitar because I didn't have anything, so I sang the guitar for
Oh, nice.
yeah to the guitar player, and he had to interpret it, but and then yeah, there was a couple other songs. Like I wrote the ballads because I play guitar a little bit, and And
I saw that you had done some guitar. By the way, it's interesting to hear you talk about that in some of my own compositional efforts. I can't play guitar at all, except for a couple of power chords, but I know the melody. And a lot of times, especially leads are just an extension of the melodic line. Um, I think, that's very cool to hear sort of a behind the scenes and how you approached it.
yeah.
The story, before we get to a couple of specific tracks, the story is tragic. And there's I applaud you for having the sort of boldness to tell a story that is maybe a little dark. It certainly got a tragic note as it finishes, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah. I mean, we kind of wanted to do something different too. We wanted to, because we didn't want the Hollywood ending.
Yeah.
We didn't want it to all work out in the end, but it's a kind of a funny, interesting twist, right? Like you go through the album and thinking it's one thing, and then at the end it's like you're kind of okay, and it leaves you with a different emotion. And I know a lot of people were angry at us. Like, what? How can you
How
do?
dare you?
How dare you? Like, that was not cool. But I don't know. Something happened on the album. Like, it was the way it was received, the way people took it to heart. I don't know. It was something magical, I think, happened.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't heard the record, but there's some beautifully tragic twists, and really really great. I also have a side of my life where I write novels, and so some of the narrative devices you use in there are really really solid, and delightful. Even though there's a darkness to the story itself, there's a surprise factor in some of that, how that comes round full circle at the end of the story. So I know I'm speaking cryptically, but I don't want to spoil it for people who still haven't taken the journey.
Right.
But I sorry, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, I'm just saying. Yeah, that's probably a good thing.
But you particularly with some of the ballads, were you instrumental on "Tears for a Father"?
Yeah, I wrote that one, and
that song, dude, is it's an amazing song. It's raw. I love how you craft the lyrics. It doesn't always fall in a sort of iambic pentameter, or other sort of predictable cadence, and it's a gut punch. And this whole euphemism of muddy water that you use, like it's I listened to that song on repeat several times.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm very proud of that song, to be honest. It's not a lot of this stuff. When I look back, I'm like, yeah, I could have done that better. I could have done this. But I think when talking about that song, I don't know why it resonates with people. It seems to resonate with people also live. Like, people want to hear it. It's short and it's sweet, and I don't know. I thought there's something always interesting also to picture, like a kid with his dad, like a dad with his son or something like that. For me, that's a strong thing already.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of I can tap into that really easily. I think my first song I wrote in Swedish, I also wrote about that relationship, and something I can tap into easily. But yeah, that just came really really when I know I wanted to say there, and I could just picture the boy sitting at the side of his father's bed, and then just saying like all the things he wished, like, and he wants to tell his dad a lot of stuff, and he doesn't know if he can hear him, and
Yeah.
and it's that kind of stuff. It just comes natural to me.
Yeah, you really knocked it out of the park with that tune. It's balladesque in the sense that it's softer, but not balladesque in the way that conventionally we think about rock tunes. There's a kind of a languor in it that is refreshing, in that it's not an emotion that we hear very often, or at least that I have not heard very often. Which isn't to say I'm not enamored of triumphant songs and all the majesty of the big thing,
Right.
because I am. But you also, this is where I started to note, like, really, really powerfully, the way you convey a song. And we'll talk more about this with some of the other music we'll get to. But um, and this then ties back to, I would love just the sort of romance of thinking that your impression from Phantom of the Opera shaped you. But uh, the way you deliver music, and so much of what you've done is got a narrative component, is it's more than just a rock singer on the stage who is got a good voice and a good band behind him and lights and all the stuff. You kind of perform a song in a way that I can only think of a few rock metal vocalists do. And I've seen you live. There's plenty of YouTube videos, but I've seen you live, and you have this ability, I think, in the way that you sort of convey the song in terms of your body movement and facial expression and all of that really kind of syncs well with the story and the music you're telling, and makes it feel dramatic. It gives it a gravitas, if I may borrow from my college days.
Yeah.
That it doesn't exist. I mean, please don't misunderstand me. I don't want any hate mail. I love all the big rock metal bands, and there's no one right way to perform a song. But there's a very, very small number of singers, I think, that do what you do. And it's very theatrical. And for that, I think it resonates with your fans like in spades, man.
Thanks. I mean, yeah, it's also something, maybe I have to say, like, becoming the singer at Camelot was, I had to step my live game up in terms of performing, and not just the singing. The performance of music like that has to be very theatrical. Like the previous singer, he had one style of being theatrical, but I have another style. Maybe a little, like, we're both very theatrical, but we have a different approach to how we do it. Like, yeah, he was very mysterious in a way, and kind of dark, and um, didn't he wasn't so he didn't give a lot of himself to the crowd, for example, but he was awesome as a performer, like really awesome. But I wanted to be something. I wanted to do my version of being theatrical, which is being very interactive, right? Yeah. And I think that's what I want to give. What I want to give people on a stage. I want to make them feel a part of the experience, right?
Yeah.
And so that's my like my focal point when I'm being theatrical. I want people to feel what I feel, and if I can look at someone or take someone's hand or make someone sing something, or that's where I am theatrical, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I put emphasis on what I think is the important part of the song, like with the face or with my body, or if it doesn't, it's not like I'm calculating it. It's a little bit different all the time, but
Sure.
it's for, that's what's coming out of me.
Yeah. No, I think what you're saying makes perfect sense. It's I've seen you, and there's a lot of interaction with the crowd in terms of outreach and eye connection and those sorts of things. But and I've never seen you like perform the same song the same way twice. I certainly, that wasn't an implication. Rather, there's just something about the whether you're inhabiting a character or you're just sort of channeling the emotion and the lyrics, and the way that you allow that to inform your facial expressions. And I don't want to over analyze this, but because I know that a lot of this is instinctive, but at the very least, it seems like you're thoughtful that it's the presentation is more than just I'm a rock singer and you're here to hear me sing the song.
Yeah, because to be honest, with everyone that's listening out there, most of the time I don't even identify as a singer. Like I think I'm first and foremost a musician that loves to create something palpable for other people, like an emotional trip. And then the thing that comes with that is to be on stage, and then I had to figure that part out. But that wasn't that wasn't what was it, drawing me into music. That was not my goal. Was not to be on the stage. So I think
That's a really good way to put it.
yeah, it just came with the gig, and then I love it when it feels good when I can sing, and I can be who I want to be up there. But there's also nights where I feel like I don't think I have it in me, right? I think because I'm very emotionally driven when it comes to music, and if I'm not feeling it, it's hard, right? It's really hard and you're tired and you're grumpy, and you've honestly, there's been many nights where I've been like, I don't think I have it in me, and then I have it in me because that's what the crowd gives me.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, okay, okay, now we can do it. But it's always a mind game with me. It's like I have to get into the right mindset.
Yeah. I think that comes through. I think that the emotional investment you make is part of what people respond to in your music and in your live performance. I'm very happy that you're out there doing it. Not as just trying to ingratiate myself to you, but because as you know, all kinds of expressions of music are viable and good. But I love the dramatic air that you lend to what you do. And I think you've helped create music both in Seventh Wonder and in Camelot that is well suited to that. Before we kind of move more into Camelot, though, if it's okay, I want to spend a few more minutes on Seventh Wonder.
Absolutely.
So The Great Escape, there is a 30-minute title track on this that's amazing.
Yeah.
Right. And I did a little bit of reading on this, and I don't want to rabbit hole too much on it, but it's based on a poem by a Swedish poet by the name of Harry Martinson. He was a Nobel laureate. Aniara, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah. Yep.
How did you come by this as a libretto for a 30-minute song? Which, by the way, all progressive fans rejoice when they hear 30-minute song. That's a masterwork. How did you land on that as a title track?
Well, that's all. The idea came from the bass player Andreas, and he was the one who really wanted to do. If it wasn't for him, we probably wouldn't have done that, because he really wanted to do that, and so we said, okay, let's do it, But and I really liked the idea of basing it on Aniara. That was a really cool idea. I hadn't read Aniara before, but he was telling us about this little collection of poems, if you will.
Yeah.
And we're all like, okay, that's awesome. That's really cool. Let's do it. That was a lot of freaking work, though. That was crazy. And he also wrote all the music for it. Like he programmed all the music into his guitar. What is it called? He had like something that sounded really bad. I don't know what it's called. Like guitar rig, or no, not guitar rig. It's some MIDI thing for guitar.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Guitar Pro.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. And then everyone has to kind of decipher where to go from there. But 30 minutes, that's an undertaking. And I remember I was spending so much time. I was sleeping in the studio for 2 weeks trying to finish one song. Like I was living on Red Bull, or some version of Red Bull, and nuts, I think. And I was like sleeping there. I was alone in that little cave that we had, and just slept a few hours, started recording again because I had to be done at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just, oh, that was awful. It was awful, but it came out pretty cool.
It did. The result, I mean, the whole album's cool, and I want to talk about one or two other things here. But that title track is, like another place where I think you guys kind of prove your mettle, not to be cute about the phrase, with writing something that is so ambitious and comprehensive, and very good instrument choices for conveying parts of the song. It's another sort of tragic narrative. I don't want to spoil it for people again, so that they can go experience it, or go read the poem, which is almost book length. It's like 103 cantos. But you guys did an excellent job of carrying that off. I'd love to see that performed live sometime. I don't know if that'll ever happen.
I would love to see that too.
Yeah.
As long as I don't have to be a part of it.
So maybe a tribute band, Seventh Wonder tribute band.
That'd be awesome. I'd buy a ticket any time.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's everything's kind of maxed out on that song too. Like,
yeah.
I think we played a couple of parts on the last tour we had. We took select parts out of the song and made a medley from the song, but we didn't play the whole song because I think no Andreas he wants to play the whole song, but the rest of us were like, I don't know if it's possible, like maybe it's not even possible. Maybe we just leave it as this magical thing that happened,
Yeah.
But it's probably possible, but
with enough rehearsal. But then that would be that would be a lot of work to prepare. I mean, and it leads me to I'm going to jump ahead to one question while we're on the topic. Will there be more Seventh Wonder in the future, or is?
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting the writing and recording of the next 7th album in like 10 days.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's great.
So yesterday I was actually listening to some of the demos and just writing some stuff in my head. But so yeah, absolutely, there will be one more at least, and it's not going to be 8 years in between like it was between The Great Escape and Tiara.
Yeah,
that was way too long. But and it was crazy that the fans stayed. It was we just were so thankful and grateful that everyone was just hanging out waiting for 8 years.
Yeah.
And it was like the band never stopped when we released Tiara. So
there were some session recordings that came out, and going back to our vocal conversation, there was something in there. You were using some sort of vocal spray at some points. I toured with a Broadway vocalist, and I can't remember the name of the product, but he used that stuff incessantly when he was performing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I had some trouble, like since I was not resting my voice at all.
Yeah.
When I was recording that album, because it was just too. It's a crazy album vocally. I think probably the craziest one maybe. And everything is kind of. I want everything. It was when I had a little bit of a brain situation when I'm like, it has to be perfect. Like I don't know, I was manic about every note being exactly the way I wanted it, which I think now is like I like Mercy Falls probably more because it's a little rawer and it's a little more. It's a real I don't know. It's less perfect.
Yeah.
Sometimes most of the time the emotion is in the imperfections, right? So
yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that quote.
Yeah.
I'm gonna steal that.
Do that. Steal it. Use it.
I love it.
But so it's not my favorite album, but it's perfect. It's like as perfect as I could sing it.
Yeah.
But perfect is not the best thing for me.
There's a song on there, I don't know if people agree with me, but called Long Way Home, that I heard shades of Freddie Mercury in your voice. And once I had that thought, a lot of other things, a lot of dominoes, sort of mental dominoes about voice fell for me. because you whether naturally or because of this early Phantom of the Opera shaping, you do some things vocally on this record and other places in Seventh Wonder and for sure in Camelot, where you there's a variety of sort of vocal approaches you'll take, and this may be partly what you were talking about, you know, finding the place for the note. But you'll go. There's a couple of things I wanted to say. You do a really beautiful job of leveraging a lower register that has a beauty and a richness um, that has also the consequence of when you go up to get a note, it makes that note bigger. It makes that note seem higher and grander because it in comparison to where some of the rest of the song is sung, it's got this variance. And I don't know if that's a deliberate vocal technique, but it does. That is the consequence of you doing that. Is when you hit some of these notes, they seem epically large, and part of it, and they're big and they're high, and you give them a lot of power. But they also grow from a vocal base and a melodic base that is deeper. Is that something you think about, or is that just a natural songwriting technique that you have?
I first of all, I just want to say, for me, music is graphical.
Oh,
It's graphic. Like it, I see music, of course, as emotion, but when I hear a song, I see it. Uh, in terms of like how it goes like this, like
yeah,
a line, and I want the, for me, development of something usually coming from the verse, it's a little lower, it's something, I want the pre-chorus to be have some a little more intensity, and I want the chorus to be have the most intensity. So, and usually that also goes with how I, like how I place the notes in pitch.
yeah,
And I wanted some notes to have impact, so they come from a lower place, right? They come from, if everything was super high all the time, nothing would be impactful.
right.
Yeah. So and I'm not the singer. It's also have to be super honest with you. I'm not a high pitched singer at all. Like, I can do that, and
Okay,
but I can't do it all the time,
right.
and I can't sing. My most hated melodies to sing are the melodies that are grading on one high note forever, because that's not my strong suit. My strong suit is to be emotional and melodical and do excursions where I pop out of that, and that seems epic, and then I take it down. So it's all about being dynamic for me. And I don't do a good job if I have to sing, like, I'm not even sure. Uh, some of these high pitched singers, they love being up there and singing that. I hate it. I don't like it at all. Like, for myself, like, I wish I could, but it's not my strong suit. I want to be
Well,
dynamic.
it sounds like there is some intention there because what happens the listening experience with when we hear you sing, for me anyway, is that when you do reach up, yes, it's true. There's always someone can sing higher, and there are definitely vocalists who sort of make a career of sitting in a really, really high place and set of notes way up above, and that's a calling card. But um, what I what's interesting and I love about your vocal approach is when you reach up for a note in a chorus or for dramatic effect, and it's a higher note for you in your register, it feels that much more epic because of this process that you go through. And I think it's really smart, both from a sort of vocal preservation as well as a just a musicality.
Yeah, and I think um, how to approach this in the best way. I mean, uh, no one, like, it's cooler for me somehow to drive, like, if you own a Ferrari and you drive 50, and then sometimes you're like pushing the gas pedal and you're like, holy smokes, this is a car,
Yeah.
and that's really cool. But if you have like a Fiat and you drive 200 and it's just shaking all the time, it's not interesting, and it doesn't feel safe, or like, it does, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
difference. I feel like Like I want to be the Ferrari driving 50 and just sometimes just like pressing, and this is cool, and then go back because it's more controlled. It's more controlled and it's more dynamic.
Yeah. Well, and so that's one thing, but there's also to great effect you'll come out of what I call a compressed note, where you're pushing some force up, and you're using it to get a blended tone, and then you'll come out of that with great facility into head tone or falsetto, and you do that, by the way, not only just on the high notes. You do it kind of. It seems like you do it, which makes sense with what you've said here today, in service of the song, to convey a lyric or an emotion. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I try to. I think I overthink and think when I record, and I make sure that everything has a purpose for me. It's not maybe the same for everyone, but for me, like for example, if there's a verse and just talking about how I'm choosing if it's going to be a falsetto or a belted note or a mixed note. It's I just for me, I want to try to streamline things a little bit. Like I don't want like when there's like a verse and then there's a high note in there, but I don't want to put it in the belting because it's gonna pop out like a something that just and you'll be just like, oh, what's that? So I try to make that note, but I try to make it less abrasive,
Yeah.
and so I have to put it in falsetto or in mixed voice, and and then I go for the sound. So I always go for the sound where I record. I want this to sound this way.
Yeah.
I try to go for that. It's not always I can, but most of the times I'll get it after a while. And then when I have the song and everything is there, I learn the sequence.
Yeah. No, you do a really good job of this, Tommy. It's and part of your willingness to like not always have to show the bravado of I can, do this, is that going back to where I started, I think it has a very theatrical consequence in how it comes across, which plays well with the music and the narrative ideas that you explore in the various music. But it gives it this. I mean, if you think about some of the very most enduring musical theater, and I know that for some metal heads, that's maybe not their favorite kind of music, but it's instructive from the standpoint that as a vocalist, it gives you like a broader set of tools to convey. And you do this as well as anybody, in my view. And I'm not just because you're on trying to give you compliments. I've said this to friends because I love vocalists who use all of these different techniques as part of their delivery. But there's not as many doing it. There's a lot of guys who they're more enamored of like how good their grit can sound, that sort of rasp, or a full throated growl, and those are important. And I'm not trying to throw shade on those,
No.
but it just seems to me that you're working with a broader set of tools, and that's a bias, but I love it.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think maybe that's one of my strengths that I think that I have as a singer is that can I'm not since I'm not considering myself a singer of sorts the same way. Like I don't have a style, uh, so I can do whatever I feel like. Especially in Seventh Wonder, I can just like whatever it calls for. I can be creative with it and try to work with it instead of being like this is the singer I am. I'm just like this is the music I am.
Yeah,
If that
uh,
makes sense.
it does make sense. I would say though that um, the result of that is that you do in fact have a style.
And that's maybe where yeah.
We all know when we hear you sing a song, whether it's with these or with if it's a collaboration like with Ayreon, which we'll talk about in a second. By the way, we're almost at an hour. I want to respect your time. I've got a lot to talk about. Do you have a hard stop at 2?
No.
Okay. Well, you tell me if I'm getting long in the tooth here, but your career kind of, in my view, demands a little bit more.
Yeah, that's fun. I think it's fun. You know, it's a different. That's also why I wanted to do this interview, because I was watching, I think, with James Labrie,
Yeah.
and I thought your your view and on things was a little bit different, and you're very knowledgeable, right? So it's fun because it takes a different angle, which I
Yeah.
really enjoy it. I really enjoy it.
Well, thank you. I, I hope that people enjoy these. We're getting some good response, and I like to talk to vocalists in particular that I think are just kind of working at the height of the craft right now. Um, so anyway, so let's keep talking about your music. The last or the most recent Seventh Wonder record was Tiara, and it was another concept album, and it was also, I think, in the same universe as The Great Escape. Is that right?
There's some hints in there, yeah, for sure. It's about, you can say they're related. They're not like, it's not a sequel or
Not a
anything.
continuation.
No, but it definitely has some elements there and some hints, and we flirt a little bit with the same theme and lyrics. But yeah, that's
Will
true.
you will you um will you return to this sort of meta thing with the future records, or was that sort of a one-time instance where there was some resonances between the records?
I think it just happened to be that way because we wrote, again, me and Andreas, we wrote the story together, and it was just something. It's very graphic when we make like when we work together. We understand each other really good when it comes to that. Like, and we were in this Earth, this space kind of thing, again. So, and then when I think I wrote the lyrics for that part that flirt that, or maybe we did it together. I can't remember. Um, but it just, there's a line in there that flirts for sure with that. I don't know why we did that, but it just
Well,
happened.
it's an echo of something that
Totally.
Arian does a lot. He has sort of big worlds that he inhabits with multiple records, and I want to talk about that in a second. But I just before we move on, I want to tell folks, if you've not heard the Tiara record, there's a lot of diversity on that record. There's a song, a couple of call outs. There's a song called "The Truth" that's very rhythmic in nature. It doesn't sort of grow into a sort of typical progressive metal bombast. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but this gives a flavor that I think is valuable when you're trying to do storytelling in a record. There's a song called "Procession" that's just got a killer organ in it. So there's these this complexion to it that you guys, I think, did really artfully, where you were using the music to highlight some of the narrative. And I guess I call attention to it, Tommy, because I love concept records, um, and it's pretty transparent to me when a band just kind of writes a bunch of tunes and then tries to force fit a narrative versus thinking about it a little bit. And if unless I miss my guess, you guys are in the latter category when you approach the music.
Yeah, most of the absolute, like the lion's share of the music was written after the fact, that we had, I think we had one song maybe, that but we still had we had the luxury in the early stage to put there where we thought it suited, right?
Yeah.
We need a rock song, or we need a this really crazy song, or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But most of the songs were written, we were handing out tasks to everyone to write maybe uh, Kurt, which is the keyboard player, he's good at doing crazy scores and stuff. And so I wrote the intro. I programmed the intro, um, which is uh, kind of like a Batman meets Star Wars tune.
Yeah.
And then, where my knowledge doesn't go far enough, I know what I want to hear, and it sounds pretty true to what it came out. But there's always something, and he knows more about the, where every instrument has its range, and every, all that stuff.
Sure.
So he kind of just took it over and did it. But everyone gets tasks, and then I wanted to write an opener and a closer for the album, and the ballad, of course, always usually, right? but and then Johan, he has his style of writing, so we needed him to write a certain style, with the guitar player, and Andreas, the bass player, to wrote something else, and then um, it was the first album with our new drummer Stefan Norgren, so he also contributed with a song. So yeah, I mean, it came together, and we're definitely in the latter.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's evident. And I still end up enjoying concept albums that do it other ways, but I don't think they ever quite rise to their ambition of having the music help sort of convey, the story.
Yeah.
So I love Seventh Wonder music. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't as familiar with it. So this was an opportunity to get to dive into a style of music I love. So I'm excited to hear that you guys are doing another record. That's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And I just wanted to touch on the truth, because you mentioned the truth, the song, and it's very different. It's super different. Like, yeah, but that's also, if the 30-minute song was the different thing on The Great Escape, this was the different thing, the different flavor that we hadn't done before, like kind of like a Toto-esque, acoustic, half acoustic at least, but something that was different. But we needed that kind of appendix to tell the story. When the girl, she comes to this, the ever ones, and she's supposed to tell her story, why human race, like what, she's basically supposed to lie, why the human race is not to be extinguished from the face of the earth, right? And she is the one chance that the earth has to survive, and she stays true to her truth, and says, well, you know what, I can't do it. Like, I can't, we are this.
Yeah.
And in that, that makes it, that is the actual turning point of the story too, where they start, where the ever ones start to realize that maybe there is hope anyway, because she was so pure, right?
Yeah.
But
I love that.
But that's, and that's the song. And I wrote, there's a bass thing in the beginning there that starts with the bass and the drums. That's just a funny side note. I wrote that thing and gave it to Andreas, and he hated me for it. Like, he totally hated it, because the bass, it's crazy. You can't play it. Like, you can't play it. So
you programmed it?
I programmed it, because I can't play bass like good enough. So
yeah, I'm guilty of that too. You do something with software, and then a human says the hand doesn't work that way.
Exactly. But then I say, make it work like that, and then he made it work like that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, the song. Sorry, go ahead.
He's superhuman that way, though. He can play anything you give to him. He just maybe needs to change one note here and there, but he's, if anyone could learn anything in life except for direction, it would be him.
Well, you're right. That tune it's one I made specific notes on, because it's got this sort of really creative rhythmic nature to it. Then it comes in with some strings, and it ends, gets more grand with guitar and stuff. So it's got this internal progression too. It's one of the highlight tracks on the record for sure. Okay, so let's transition to some of your work, at least briefly, with Ayreon. So you've been tapped 3 times. You were on The Theory of Everything, The Source, and Transitus, the studio albums, right?
Yep.
Were you also on any sort of the live?
I was on the live DVD. Yeah. Yep.
He clearly, he's made a career, with just a few exceptions, out of writing epic sort of rock and metal operas. That's his calling card for sure.
Yeah.
So and by the way, he told me to tell you hello, because I told him we were going to be talking.
Yeah. Thank you.
The fact that he's tapped you so many times, I think, is a compliment to an acknowledgement, excuse me, an acknowledgement of your ability to sort of inhabit and to communicate narrative, since that's really a core component of all of his music. I wanted to ask just for some flavor from you on your work with him. With did you guys co-locate to do this? Did you record remotely? You know, how much sort of how much were you aware of all of all the narrative pieces when you kind of came to the recording process?
Yeah, he wanted me to the first time, which was the theory of everything. He wanted me to come there because he works with the, you know, he doesn't really work remotely with just a few people that he know
Yeah.
do it. And so yeah, I was at his place, and I think we had 2 days. And I had just
Wait a minute. You only had 2 days to record?
yeah, 2 days.
Holy cow, dude.
I think it was Saturday and a Sunday, or Friday and Saturday, something like that.
That's remarkable.
Yeah, but it was like in that one I had maybe like 15 parts or something. And but the thing is, then before then, I just had to say that I'd screwed my voice up
Oh no.
pretty bad. Like I had a bleeding in my vocal cord from recording, and so I couldn't sing for half a year at all. Like no high notes, and of course I didn't go. I was stupid. I didn't go to a doctor or anything, so I just thought it was just gonna go away. But I tried to keep singing on it all the time, so I think it never healed. And it was to the point where I was like, holy smokes, I think maybe my career is done. You know, like I can't do a high note anymore. Like what's happening? And then this is going to turn into a long story.
No, let's hear it. I want to hear it.
Yeah. And it was when I recorded the song Inner Enemy. For anyone who heard that, I recorded a whole day. I recorded all the vocals for that song, and then there was this at the end. It was this super, not super high, but a high note at the end, at the very end. And I already had like 8 hours of recording or something under my belt, so I was getting
Tired, man.
tired, yeah. And it didn't come out the way I wanted. I was doing it and doing it and doing it a couple of times because I knew what I wanted to hear. Like that's my problem always. Like I knew what I wanted to hear, and if I can't get it, I need to try again, right? Or wait. But I had to go to this other studio to record, so I didn't want to go there again. So I just kept on doing it. No one was telling me to. I was just stupid, and there was this high note, and I wanted to be straight first, and I wanted to have a little bit of grit in the beginning, and I wanted to have a vibrato at the end, and then the little ad lib that I wanted to do at the end. So I was like, I got to do this. Anyway, I did it, and then I was like, huh, that's weird. Like I feel I'm getting hoarse. It's progressively getting more and more hoarse over the course of the day or the night, because it was already late. And then the next morning, there was no sound coming out, and I was like, "Oh shit! Like that's not good."
Yeah.
And it sounded like it dropped 2 octaves. If there was a sound coming out, so I was like, "Whoa, that's not good." And it wasn't, because I had like a hemorrhaging of my one of my vocal cords.
Wow, dude.
Yeah, so I didn't know that until half a year later. But
Remind me the song you were tracking when that happened?
Inner Enemy.
Inner Enemy.
Yeah.
Man.
It's not a super high note at the end, but that's was enough when you're tired, to grade, but slowly grade it until I had a bleeding. And that's also me.
Just before you go on, like this is just instructive because I know we've got musicians that follow the channel. 8 hours of vocal work in a studio is that's insane amount. Especially when you're some of it at least is athletic music. That's so the fact that you can had some of the most important, or at least the biggest notes at the end, doesn't surprise me at all that was a challenge. Like 8 hours for people who don't know, 8 hours in a vocal studio, the voice tires just having an hour-long conversation. Okay, sorry, I wanted to do my editorial.
That's really good. I appreciate that, because don't do that, people. That's just dumb. And but I was coming from a place where I could be like 2 weeks in the studio singing, and I thought I was, I wasn't gonna get hurt, but I definitely did something stupid there. And then uh, coming out of that, we had, I think the first show I had after that was Sweden Rock with Camelot. Uh, so on the big stage, like 30,000 people.
Wow.
So 4 days before that, I still couldn't sing. And here comes like the one of my biggest things that I still use today as a tool to warm up and to cool down, and to, when I'm tired, to loosen my voice up and massage my vocal cords. And that's, I went to a doctor and he said, you've had a vocal bleeding, and he showed me like one vocal fold was just still when the other one was trying to vibrate, and that's why I couldn't take any high notes. And I was like, okay, so what do? I have a show in 4 days, and it's not just a club show or anything. It's kind of like an important thing going up.
30,000 people.
Yeah. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna refer you to one of my friends who happened to be an opera singer and a coach. And I went to her and she gave me this straw. It's a straw that you hum into or blow into and do different exercises into water. And it's called, I think you can look it up, it's called Laxvox. And I see it everywhere now. I had never seen it before then, but I see it everywhere now. Everyone's using it. Like Ayreon is using it. Everyone is behind the scenes just blowing in their little bottle.
Yeah.
But it's a really good tool. And she said, you just have to be quiet for up until, don't say anything up until you're actually going on stage. Don't say anything, and do blow in this little straw for, I think it was now like a minute every hour, and don't say anything. And I'm like, that sounded like it's not going to work, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did it. I didn't say anything 4 days, and I didn't open my mouth until I walked on stage, and I could sing like nothing happened. So I swear by that thing, because it was 6 months of not being able to sing, and then 4 days I was able to complete the whole set. I was tired after, but
yeah.
But
James Labrie uses this.
Okay.
And a female vocalist that I admire a lot, who sings with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, also uses this straw thing. I don't have one. I'm going to go get one immediately after we're done here.
I think so. I mean, it's just another tool, but it happened to work perfectly for me for what I needed.
Yeah.
I use it on tour, before every show, after every show, as a warm up, as a cool down. It's awesome, because what I've always struggled with is that I want to, if there's tension or anything here, and I feel like I'm restricted, I just want to put something, I want to take my hand and like massage. You want to get to the vocal cords to somehow loosen them up, but you can't, because they're in there, right? The only thing you can do is kind of like hum, and you can like massage your muscles and all that stuff, and like jog and stuff like that, but you can't physically do anything inside to the vocal cords, right? Except for drinking water, but which takes a couple hours. But so this is the only thing that I feel does something physical to the actual vocal cord. Like it vibrates the vocal cord in a healthy way to loosen tension, and it works.
Yeah, I've heard, like I said, I've heard vocalists talk about this. It's in many I've heard talk about humming, just really soft humming as another thing they do to try and just relax. I even have the thing where I'll be listening to you, and even without vocalizing, I'll feel my larynx responding and moving as though I'm making, and so it's still exercising.
Right.
Um, and I don't think I'm unique in that regard. I think other people have that same reflexive thing. But as the vocal trainer I had would say what you just did too. He would say, speech is the enemy to the singer. So, then you think about a guy like you who has to talk to a guy like me, on the day of a show, meet and greets, sound check, and I've said this before, but there's a whole number of things that require you to use your voice. And those things are sort of, they have a tax. You're spending some of your vocal energy before you even get to the show.
Totally. Totally.
So,
That's so true. And I try to avoid interviews on the same day as much as I can.
yeah,
And if I have to do them, I make sure it's quiet around me. So we go somewhere else. I can actually keep my volume down.
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and try to not make them long, just short. And I also try to think about that. I do that all the time though. Before a show, try to think about how I'm speaking. Like I'm speaking. If I'm right now, I'm not using any good technique. I'm speaking to you. I'm speaking very like poorly. But if I would speak with someone, I would probably not. I would keep my um, abdominal pressure, and I would make sure I'm not squeaking on the end notes. Like I have a habit of like going, okay, uh, like that's
Yeah,
not very good. So
yeah,
I would make sure I'm talking maybe a little more like this. I don't go down to squeaky or
yeah.
anything because that tires me, right? It's like whispering tires you.
Exactly right. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Whispering, it's counterintuitive, but whispering when you think you're preserving actually creates a frictive nature in the vocal cords that's taxing. So it's better to speak sort of mildly, but try and keep the resonance in what you're saying. These are all really smart things. I've never heard a vocalist talk about this. So I appreciate you sharing. I think a lot of folks will be interested, and I think vocalists will take good cues from this. Um, yeah, yeah. So see, even the absence of some formal coach, you're doing so many of the things that sort of pros do, which I think is why you're able to tour on such an aggressive um, schedule and with such aggressive music. Um, I'm impressed. That's really valuable advice Tommy's just given everybody. Um, Okay, so I wanted to so back on the Ayreon thing, you when you had started to tell the story that you got there, did you arrive and you had the vocal problems, or by that point had you kind of gotten past them?
No, I still had them. Like that was after the fact that I did that show, but I still had, like I couldn't sing forever, or I couldn't do like a lot of taxing work. I'd get tired and it'll cramp up on me again or swell. So that was after the fact, but I was so I did maybe 1.5 days, but the high parts, there was a few high parts that I heard in my head that I wanted to do, but I was too tired. I couldn't do it. And the voice would crack and stuff. So I would I said, okay, I'll do that. Like I do like the 1 or 2 takes at home and send you when I get home, because we only had these 2 days. And so I did that, and he was really happy with that. He was like, "Oh my god!" Like, because I rewrote some of the melody and like just to make it fit my voice.
Yeah,
I did it on a day where I was feeling good. Um, so yeah, so and he was amazing. I mean, I love him, and I love his wife Lori and their little dog. I mean, there's such nice people. And I remember one of the first parts that I was singing. It was a really soft and delicate part, and I sang it, and Arya started crying in the studio. I was like, it was amazing. It's amazing, it's encouraging too, right?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he's so sort of renowned for writing epic work that has a lot of dynamics in it. Um, and I've only heard the story a couple of times of people that he was willing to do any remote work with. So I think it also speaks to some level of confidence he had in you that he let you record remotely on a few things.
Yeah, and then the last two, or the next following two, I never went to his place. I just recorded everything at home
Oh, uh,
from
makes
that on.
sense.
So because he knew he didn't have to fly me over anymore,
Yeah.
and I would just interpret whatever he gave me and try to make it my own. So sometimes I would change melodies. Sometimes I would just interpret it a little bit differently, but try to put my kind of moniker or my style into it.
Yeah. No, it comes through for sure. All great records. Um, Ayreon is another one that I was loosely familiar with. I'd heard some stuff, but his catalog's so deep, and so those two paths intersected at the time I was, getting ready to chat with him about things. I was doing the same for you, and there were several records that were you worked on
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
All right, so let's talk about Camelot. Um, the how did the nod to come and do that, is it a consequence of you kind of filled in on the tour and then they said that's got to be the guy full time? Can you tell us the story of sort of becoming a part of the Camelot family?
Yeah, I mean, started really with um, Seventh Wonder again. I mean, that was kind of what led to it because we were playing Prague Power. I don't know if you're familiar with Prague Power,
Very familiar, yeah.
um, in Atlanta, and we were there with Seventh Wonder. We were going to go there with Seventh Wonder to play, and Camelot was headlining the day of our show. So we played somewhere in the middle, and Camelot played last. But before, I think it was like a week or 5 days or something like that, 4 days before we were going there, and this Thomas calls me, which is the guitar player of Camelot, and they're having a problem because they don't have a singer for the tour and which is going to kick off uh, in Atlanta. So he asked me if I could. I think he went through the singers that was already there, to see if anyone could help him out. And I said, I honestly, I was super sick. I was sick like a dog, like a couple of days before I was going to go, so I couldn't even rehearse my own stuff. Uh, so and I was like, honestly, I don't think I can help you. I can maybe I can maybe learn one or two songs if that helps you. So I learned, I think, two songs, or one song, I think, Eden Echo, just by listening to it. Like never tried to sing it or anything because I was sick. I had to try to um, uh, save my voice. But yeah, and then on the day of the show, I just popped in when they were doing the set. I think, or I know that they flew Michael Erickson from Circus Maximus in to do that show. And then they had to cancel the rest of the tour, unfortunately. But yeah, that's how it started. I was just up there for one song, and then we started talking, me and Thomas, more and more, and back and forth. And I did an audition tour where I was a backup singer too. Like Fabio Leone was singing. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
a backup guy, and Elise Rid was a backup singer with me. So it was an interesting thing. But then I think what got me the part, or what got me the job in the end, was probably not being a total asshole, and
Yeah.
also that I could write, right? Like I could because I auditioned for a ballad, and I wrote the melodies and the words for the song that later came to be the song for Jolie. That was on the first album, Silverthorn, and that was the first thing I ever did for Camelot, writing wise, and I was just writing it over the music that was there. And that's, I think, how I got the part two. Like you wanted someone that could write his own melodies and lyrics.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't know that they could have found a better replacement. Not that you're a replacement, because that makes it sound like you filled the slot that and doing the things that your predecessor did, and that's not the case. But the music just, I think, requires a kind of sensibility, vocal sensibility that it's unique. I mean, it's part of the reason that I think Camelot is having increasing success is that it is unique, and you're a part of that. Your vocal stylings are part of that. Um, the I'm just about to ask you, which you already answered, about the writing process. It sounds like I know some vocalists I talk to, they're not as instrumental in the actual writing process. Sounds like at the very least you're writing melodies and lyrics, or are you actually writing some of the music as well?
For the first album, I didn't write any music, except for I was working with the producer in the studio, like piecing things together, like ideas, and I guess I was writing a little bit still with him, but mostly the lyrics and the melodies in the first album, because
Yeah.
it was I did a lot of research how how my how Roy was doing it, like in the beginning. I had to see, because I didn't really listen to Camelot a lot before. So in order to be able to write something that speaks to the same audience, I kind of listened to the old stuff and the older stuff, that came before me, and just to see like what intervals, what emotions, what kind of taste of words, what kind of what's the uh core, was he approaching this, and maybe I can just take that and I can make it my own, but with a similar flavor, right?
Right.
So that was really, I learned a lot by doing that research to figure out who I was going to be as a uh, frontman of Camelot. But it was from the first album I wrote everything, like together with Sasha and Ollie, some parts here and there, uh, but mostly myself. So
That's that's kind of remarkable. I mean, they it seems as though they had already sort of you done some test drives with them, so they had a sense of you already. But for a band with that much that is that established with that much following, to let the new singer come in and take the mantle of doing a lot of the lyric and melodic writing, to me that's suggestive of their confidence, and it is something that I wanted to mention. One of the things I always look for in music is unpredictability. And for me, what that means is that I can't always anticipate where the music's going to go next. You do a really good job of when you're writing your melodies of seating the melodic line against the chord progressions and the other instrumentation in a very pleasing way, but also finding melodic changes that I think are not predictable. And that's the part of the delight of music is the surprise of it. At least for musicians and people who listen to a lot of music, because if you know what's coming next, it gets, it's kind of same old, same old. And I've wondered this, and this is just a speculation. You can tell me what you think about this, but I've wondered if we get the benefit of inheriting um, music and melodic sensibilities that you grew up with in a different country. Like, I wonder if there's a homogeny of melodic choices that Americans make because they've heard so much of the same music, they have the same bass. But when we get to hear you sing, you're like probably, unconsciously, not unconsciously, subconsciously, um, you're drawing on a wealth of other sort of melodies and musical bass that are different than us. And I don't know, am I making any sense, or does this sound weird?
it's totally making sense, because I know also that was one of the deliberate choices that, taking me as a singer, because the guy before me was Norwegian and wasn't from the States. So he and I think we have a similar flavor. uh Norwegians and Swedish, they're just neighbor countries.
Sure.
So we have like that's uh, diff, definitely a difference in how we think melodies, you know
Yeah.
from American people, I think, or from other parts of the world, Arabic, you know, anywhere. But we have a different, like the melodies are maybe longer. They're a little more, you know, they don't end where you think they're gonna end. Or
Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. You do this thing, man. I'm listening to you sing and I think, oh, he's going to turn this phrase and it's going to have this nice resolve here. And then there's like another 3 or 4 measures and the
right.
melodic line goes on that like any sort of refrain or recurrence happens over a longer amount of music. And so it's less tiring to the ear. Like I love it, by the way, because and I think that it's not the only reason, but it's certainly an ingredient to your music that is separates it from a lot of the music that comes we get domestically at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, it's just different, right? Like, I can appreciate American music, American melodies now because they're usually very hooky, like they get it's earworms and maybe
Yeah.
less elaborate
Yeah.
sometimes. Like they're more to the point or you know on certain notes. Where I don't know, I just grew up with ABBA, you know. Not just like they're just like you know that's what it is for me in music. It just comes out that way.
I mean, this is not throwing shade on American music, but because I love so much of it.
Oh yeah,
But there's through radio and through a lot of the music that is our base, there's been conventions of that have just become sort of institutionalized over time. And as a consequence, like and some of it's rooted in sort of the standard blues progression. There's a lot of American even rock music that still kind of that's the bedrock for it.
yeah.
But and I know that there's blues in other parts of the world, but there is like you guys will other countries they will have a progression that is standard to how they think about music that is different and usually longer. And so melodic phrases that come from a band like Camelot, they're more extensive. Um, and the first time I heard you guys, it took me a second just to process. Well, he didn't end it there. He totally should have ended it there.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and then I came to sort of appreciate that there was a difference in the music, and it opened me up to listening in different ways.
Eh,
Um, so I wanted to acknowledge that. I love that. I love but a lot of the rest of the band is from Florida, aren't they?
eh,
Or
eh, I mean, it's been a few lineup changes.
true.
So when I joined the band, it was Casey Grillo from also from Florida, Tampa. Thomas from Tampa, and then Sean was also from Florida originally. But yeah, so there were three people from the States, and then the keyboard players from Germany,
Yeah.
and me. And now we have a new drummer, Alex Landenberg, and he is from Germany too. So now we have two Germans, two Americans, and me.
Yeah.
So,
That's good. Very
bit of
international.
freedom fighter.
Well, I love it. I love the it's not complex is the wrong word, but there's a certain added layer, a certain extended nature to the vocal melodies that I think really sort of make the music distinctive. Um, I also wanted to before we move past Silverthorn, there's there's this suite on there called Prodigal Son,
Hmm.
and it's I wanted to point folks to it if they've not heard it as a really good example of a song where you use all the various vocal techniques we've talked about, where you'll use falsetto, you'll do some belting, you use the lower register, you'll do certainly there's places where you're in a mixed voice. There's places where you'll lend some grit to a turn of phrase or a word to give it some punch. Um, and then there's always sort of this melodic sense that you have that is, I think, unique. So if you want like a mini cauldron of Camelot goodness, that's a good place to see. I mean, you should just listen to the whole record, but it's a place. There's like a mini arc in there, in my view, and it's a good example of like the many things you do so well.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, it has a lot of parts for sure, and kind of like a little mini epic song, I would say.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I agree. It's really well done. There's a lot of dynamics in it. Camelot fans will know it, but I call it out so people that are less familiar with you can maybe kind of go dial that up and they'll hear what we're talking about. The next record's Haven, and this is an album that's started to climb in the charts. U.S. Billboard at 75 is what I have. At the Billboard Hard Rock charts, it hit #1. You guys had a lot of success with this, and you opened on an American leg. You opened for Nightwish, did you not?
That was actually with Silverthorn.
Oh, is that Silverthorn?
Yeah, that was with
I have my thing wrong. Okay.
That's okay. Yeah, that was a cool tour though. Like, that was my first American tour.
Did you play? Gosh, not that you remember. There, I think I saw that show. I think when you opened for them. But in any case, I want to talk more about Haven. There's a track on there called Under Gray Skies, and it's beautiful. I mean, and it's there's a lot of these tribute like covers. I don't know if you've seen these on YouTube.
Yeah,
a lot of people covering that song.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Very popular, and it's one of the unique things is it's got Troy Donackley, if I'm saying his name correctly, who plays a little bit of I think the whistle or the pipes on it.
Yeah, Julian pipes.
But it's got this beauty to it, but also this kind of languor. Is that a song you wrote? Like, did you do the melodies and lyrics and any of the songwriting in that one? Instrumental writing?
Yeah, a little bit. The main idea for the chorus and the I think parts of the verse came from Ollie, and then I wrote the melodies and the lyrics for it, and we rearranged it a little bit in the studio at Sasha's place. So once I had written the chorus melody, we knew, like, me and Sasha and Thomas, we thought like maybe that's cool to have that melody featured in the beginning with the pipe, with one of those instruments, and see if he wants to play it. And so that's that part came. That intro wasn't there, of course, before I wrote the lyrics and the.
Oh, that's cool.
So that came, let's do a variation of that melody as an intro, and he wanted to do it. It sounds awesome, So
it came out really well. It's also I wanted to highlight the track not just because it's become, I can't even count how many sort of internet covers of it there've been, but that it's balladesque, but it's so different from a typical power ballad that it's not even, it does a disservice to call it that. But it does have this, it's definitely got this sort of love sensibility because you are in a duet, and you are talking about, well, you tell me what you're talking about. I mean, I have my idea, but I'd love to hear, like, you talk, since you wrote the lyrics, like how were you trying to convey this emotion?
I think it started with like it's nowadays it's really hard, like, to believe in yourself and to kind of build a cage around yourself to protect yourself. And I don't want to go in too deep, but it's kind of like telling someone I believe in you, like,
Yeah.
like, no matter if you believe in yourself or not, I believe in you, and I think you have potential. I think you can do great things, and that's kind of the, like, we all go through grief and loss, and it's easy to close up on yourself.
Yeah.
But we can all work through it. Kind of, that's the big picture.
It's helpful. The reason I ask about it is because it's not just, it doesn't just harbor this this idea of love song. It's bigger than that. And rather than me try and interpret, I love that idea of belief, because that definitely comes comes through when you hear that song. It kind of is this shot in the arm around um, with confidence. It was one of the first songs that like I really was attracted to. I came to Camelot like knowing about Camelot later, and that song just should have been a bigger hit than it was. Uh,
Yeah,
I mean, it's got all the earmarks for it.
thank you. I think that's something we want to do a lot of. Like we don't want to be that like a dark force in music. We want to be something. It can be dark and melancholic, but it always has to have some kind of light at the end of the tunnel for people. You know, like if there's a message, it's usually a message that you can do it. You're worth it. There's always a way. Uh, there's we, that's kind of what we want to convey with basically everything we do. That it's not only grief and sadness. There's also resolution.
That's it's really interesting to hear you talk that way about the music because it delivers that emotional impact, for sure. Um, is one of the reasons I love it. There's so much music and storytelling too that is so nihilistic anymore, and so there's so little that's hopeful about it. And I know that there's a place for that, and sometimes you need those super sad or mean or aggressive songs. But there's more power in redemption, I think.
It's like yeah, there's a lot of power in that. And it's a strong emotion. Like anything that's a strong emotion, like it will rise above something, or it's it calls it speaks to people, and that speaks to us, right? So actually, that's why we're writing it. But it's really cool that people latch on to that because that's the message that we feel we want to say. We want to like it's already really freaking tough being a human as it is. Like we don't have to beat ourselves up. We can just
Yeah.
focus on the stuff that we can actually, you know, like focus on the good stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's not to wax too philosophical, but we are living in times, particularly in the United States, where people get sort of crucified for their worst moment.
Mhm.
And in the same way that a vocalist will hit an off note, but that is by no means the measure of who that vocalist is. Any one mistake you make is not the whole of who you are as a person. And music that reinforces that idea of rising above and being resilient and redemption, I think is needed existentially, in addition to all the fun and rock and roll that we get.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
and it's I don't know.
and
Th-
your
th-
music works on both levels.
yeah. I mean, there's enough music about grief and about. I mean, this is also about taking the grief in a different light. Like there's grief. It's okay to have grief, because you're gonna get over it.
Yeah,
Not just like dwelling in the grief, just
wallow in it.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Because that can become a vicious cycle if it just continuing to reinforce the negative, where part of the power of music can and should be to elevate you, past it.
Yeah.
Um, that's and you hear that in Camelot music. Absolutely. Um,
Good.
so just a couple more things. The most recent album was Shadow Theory. As I mentioned at the top, it entered Billboard Hard Rock charts at number 2, and hit Amazon Hard Rock and Metal charts at number 1. Clearly the best charting record you've had to date. Um, was there anything different in the approach for the most recent record from previous records, or was it just a natural evolution of who you guys are?
I think so. I think it's really hard. It's even hard thinking back to why certain things end up the way they do, because it's really just I feel like music's always a snapshot of what you were
Mm.
then, right? Like that's what came out, and that's the process led to all these songs, and we had a little less time than um, on that album to do it. I wasn't available go for such a long time. I went down to Sasha's, and I think I was there for a month, and I think that was it. Of course, the music took, the writing of the music took longer, but it's all in the vocal process. Everything comes together as the song that you hear.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
But
it's a great record. I saw you guys on tour in Seattle. You played the Neptune with Battle Beast, and I think was it Sonata Arctica?
yep, yep.
Yeah, I had to tell you, that venue is a good mid-sized venue. But your stage show was not a mid-sized venue stage show.
No, no. We go for it now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was telling my buddy that I came to the show with, in terms of the fixtures on the stage, the lighting was just, it was amazing, an amazing show. Like I've never seen a show that beautifully produced in a venue of that size. Like that's an arena level show in terms of all of the production value.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. That a lot of credit to Thomas there, because he has the vision for the band, and he's the creative force when it comes to making sure that we grow a step, we take the next step.
Yeah.
And we have an amazing light engineer. He's really top of the line. He is as you mentioned, like you love the light show, and he puts a lot of love into the lights.
You can tell.
Yeah, and he loves his job, So we just very fortunate to work with really really talented, great people too, because it's a teamwork for sure.
Yeah.
And everyone contributes, everyone from the band to everyone, at the boards. And
Yeah, I actually felt like I underpaid when I saw that show.
that is cool.
And everything that night, I'm sure as many nights, was just hitting on all cylinders. You were in perfect vocal form. The band was great. The production was great. I had seen you once before, but that show like made me like a more tried and true fan. Like you guys, as good as the records are, like you guys put that same sound on stage, which is remarkable.
Thank you. Yeah, usually Seattle is kind of because you saw it in Seattle, right?
Yeah.
In theater.
Yeah.
I love that venue though. Like I love any venue that has kind of this natural room sound.
Yeah.
Like just singing in there is even I don't know how the sound is out. Usually maybe it can be terrible in places like that, but singing and hearing your voice resonating out in a place like that is always, I love that.
Yeah.
I don't like when I'm not one of those guys. I don't thrive when I hear myself like dry or like cracking and whatever it is. It doesn't help me in my performance.
Yeah.
Here I could pop an ear out, and I could sing with and just enjoy the sound. And then you relax more as a singer too when you trust the things you hear.
Yeah.
So,
No,
yeah.
It is a really good venue. And it's got a big sound. I think it seats like 700 or 800, but it's got a bigger sound than that. And you guys had packed it that night. Yeah, it's a great venue. And you guys did it. Just to commend, like for folks who haven't seen Camelot live, like it is worth every dollar just in the spectacle. I was really impressed with that. There's a lot of bands, they do light and sound, and it's an important ingredient. You guys are artful about it. And to your point with your light guy, the degree, I don't know if he was writing faders or if some of this was programmed, but the way the lights were reacting to musical changes was really pretty amazing.
Yeah. I think he has, I don't know a lot about that stuff, but he has scenes, it's called, right? Like, with certain lights, colors, and movement. And I think he programs a lot of it.
Yeah.
To go like even parts of songs, like he does pre-production that way. So it makes a lot of sense, his lights.
Yeah.
Which is also that it's really impactful. It taps into that theatrical thing. Like when there's a ballad, there's like this beautiful lighting, and and it's all like thought out. So
I have to. There's one kind of. It's going to sound frivolous, but it's not meant that way.
okay.
You might be the only singer I know who can pull off wearing a hood and make it look cool.
That's good. I'm gonna continue doing the hood thing.
Yeah, no, it gives it's very consonant with so much of the music, which has there's an, sometimes an edge, sometimes a bit of secrecy or of mysteriousness, and but that is a form of costuming that you have to like. This goes back to the dramatic presentation, or at least this sort of not that it's rehearsed as specific movements, but just in inhabiting that music and the way you present it. You know, if you were not good at that, those costume choices might fall down.
Yeah.
But on the other side, what actually happens is it really enhances the experience of watching you perform, because it I don't know, it lends something to the mystery and something to the persona that you're using when you're performing these songs. I love it to death. But you know what? There, and this is to your credit. There's just a lot of guys couldn't do that. Like you have the physique, you have the charisma, and this approach that allows you to do that and make it really really work. I know it sounds frivolous, but I wanted to say it out loud because I'm failing to think of another one that doesn't do it tongue in cheek.
Mm.
You don't do that. I mean, yours is it's part of the persona, and it's really cool, man. It gives you guys I know that you can overthink a band's look, but you guys have like a very sort of distinctive look, and how you present yourselves part of that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Like I think maybe part of why it works so well is that I feel cool when I do it.
Yeah.
you know, like if you lean into it, you gotta lean into it. You gotta own it. If you have a quirky outfit or if you have like something like that, you gotta first of all you have to really like it yourself and really like I'm not gonna excuse myself for this. This is awesome, you know?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that if I had to wear it and I didn't like it, maybe it didn't work. It wouldn't work. But it's a cool thing. I feel powerful when I do it,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
you exude that. That comes across. And it's part of the experience of getting to go see a concert is, this transport, and your choices there are part of that. I wanted to bring it up because you're the only guy I know doing that, and you do it well.
Thank
Um, we've had a few little tidbits about where you guys are with the next record. Is there anything you can share? Are you guys like still songwriting? Where are you at?
well, we're wrapping it up right now. So that's exciting. We have the songs and it sounds really good. And it's a little different in a different way, but uh I think people are gonna really like it. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I been writing some more music for this record too, which makes me excited. On a
Yeah.
personal level, I've contributed more, so that's
Do
cool.
we do you have any timing, or is it too soon?
It's a little too soon. I don't want to say anything stupid, but I think uh, if touring happens early next year or in the spring next year, it'd be cool to have an album out by then. I think that's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it, and I just gotta make a few more recording sessions here, and then go into the Seventh Wonder stuff next here. So it's a lot of work still to be done, but I'm really liking what I'm hearing, and everyone is kind of happy now. So, at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some signs that the world's opening up for live entertainment.
Yep.
Um, I know there's always the specter of a new variant with COVID, but so far, at least, I've seen recently their concerts are kind of coming back.
Yep.
So keep our fingers crossed that you guys can get back out on tour. But I don't think you have any dates that are set. Do you?
We do have in February. I think the idea is that we're going to South America, but who knows? I mean, who knows at this point, right? Where
Yeah, that could all
everything
change.
could change. It already changed, but we hope that that's a possibility still. Um, but I can't say for sure at this point.
Would you guys consider any one of these sort of virtual things, or is that just not?
We haven't talked about it, to be honest. I think maybe not, due to everyone being busy with their own stuff anyway. Like it takes a lot of, again, preparation to do something like that.
Yeah, you don't just throw that together.
Yeah, especially not if you want to, like, we have a really high standard of how we want to be perceived, and it's just not our thing. I don't think. Maybe it will happen in the, something acoustic or something like that. But
Oh, that'd be really interesting. An
yeah,
acoustic set.
yeah. But again, like right now we're focusing on getting the album ready so we can actually go out touring when it's happening, and then yeah, we all have our little small projects. Like
Well, Seventh Wonder is not a small project.
no, it's huge. It's huge, and I wish it was, because it's kind of more like a hobby, right? We don't make a lot of money, so it's still kind of like the fun hobby.
Have you seen any Camelot fans sort of finding Seventh Wonder?
Yeah, it's been quite a few of those, and that's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's part of why we could, as a band, after 8 years, go tour like some decent venues.
Mm-hmm.
We never were a touring band, really. So we haven't organically built our fan base from touring. So it's been mostly like word of mouth.
Yeah.
I think. So I think we're still considered underground after all these years, but it was crazy that we could go out and play some good venues, and it was like so many people coming out. Like it was amazing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is because of my stuff with Camelot. The people found Seventh Wonder through that, so we could do that, which is it's just awesome. But
For sure, because there's so much good music there, and sounds like more to come. And while they're distinctive groups, they both sit in the under the larger umbrella of like progressive metal or something. And certainly to the degree that you're doing concept albums and stuff. And you're one of the ingredients in both those things. I hope more people come back and find Seventh Wonder who haven't heard of them. And I'd love to see you guys go out and do some dates. That would be amazing.
yeah, I mean, our last dates were our last show we played with Seventh Wonder. It was Prague Power. So I remember I flew. That's another challenge that I had to face is that trying to try to juggle two bands playing live. So it kind of like we had to, a few occasions where I had to play with Seventh Wonder one day, and the next day I had to do it 1.5 hour Camelot set. So it's like
Yeah.
it's a lot of material to learn first and foremost, and I suck at lyrics, at remembering lyrics.
Oh, really?
Oh, I'm terrible. Like I think I'm better now, but that's always been like my weak, you know, kind of weak point. I remember even like singing with my sister at Christmas. We have like VHS tapes of like me and her singing like Christmas songs, and she's like when I forget forget the lyrics all the time.
You forget lyrics to Christmas songs?
Totally. I'm really bad with lyrics. I just,
That's
even
funny.
if I write it myself, like it's sometimes it's terrible. But anyway, yeah.
You ever have to use a cheat sheet on stage?
No. Then if anything, I'll just mumble a little bit. But
Oh, there you go.
like or usually I'm fine, but there's a one word here and there that for some reason I can't remember what it was. I just sing something similar.
Yeah.
Like static
Yeah.
stuff, but
Some sort of strange vowel.
totally, yeah, it happens. Especially when it's really hard when I zone out. Like if I zone into something, or if I focus on something in the crowd, or if I and then it the preparations really, comes to show. Like if I made my homework or not, if I really know the lyric or if I don't. Because
Yeah.
if I focus on something else, I trust it to just come to me instinctively. I need to know it.
Like muscle memory.
Yes, and if it doesn't, I know I cheated.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, that's that's really interesting. I once did a festival in Germany that I had to take on short notice, and I had to use some cheat sheets because it was like 21 songs I had to learn in about 10 days, and I didn't know any of the material.
Oof,
So
it's a nightmare.
I can appreciate yeah, it's fun to be and it's not that I've done very many of those. I've done a handful, but it's so nice to be back to what you said before, to be prepared. You
Prepared,
just feel you're so much more comfortable in performing the music if you're not in your head about what the next word's going to be.
totally, and that's my nightmare. Like going on stage with a repertoire that I don't know. It's like awful. That's
Yeah.
the stuff of nightmares for me. Like I have had nightmares about that stuff. Like I'm just on stage, and these are the songs we're playing them now, and I have no freaking idea what it is. Like that's awful. So I try to really make sure I know them, uh, to you know to the point that I can do three things at the same time. I still remember
Yeah.
the lyrics.
There's a lot going on at a Camelot show, so I can appreciate the preparation.
Yeah, yeah, I think
In a good way, but
yeah,
you know,
totally.
and then you've got songs where you've got vocalists there with you, and you're having to do some interaction. You
Hmm.
know, those are all things that require, and I know that can happen organically, but um, that's a lot of things to be juggling in your head.
It
Um,
is, it is, and the worst thing was the DVD that we did. That was crazy, because we had all the guests and we had songs that we never played before, and we basically didn't rehearse before, and
oh wow,
all these cues and this and that, and oh, and it was at the beginning of a tour, so we didn't have the machine kind of oiled up. Uh, so that was stressful, but it came out amazing.
which DVD was that?
It's Camelot live DVD. I am the Empire from the 013 in Tilburg, um,
Okay,
the newest one. So yeah, if you haven't watched that, maybe give it a
yeah, I will.
because that turned out really cool, and it's the whole, it's Camelot at its craziest, with all
Yeah.
the gimmicks and all the sing-alongs and lights and smoke.
That's great. Yeah, I'll go find a copy of that for sure.
Yeah.
So I've only got one or two more questions. We kind of heard what's next for you musically. The one of the things I like to ask has to do with like, is there another mountain you want to climb? And it could be creative. It could be there's another creative endeavor in your life, whether it's painting or whatever, or it could be non-musical. But some sort of ambition you have that you've had to hold in abeyance because there's just not been time for it. There's something in your future that, you know,
Well, something I haven't done that I want to do is a solo album, like everyone
oh
else.
wow.
And I don't know what that's going to sound like yet, but probably something more. Like I want to do different things, but definitely one where it's more acoustic stuff. There's room for the voice to do all the nuances and stuff.
Yeah.
And I really love that because I have an affinity towards ballads and acoustic music, storytelling.
Yeah.
Um,
It's definitely a strength of yours. Um,
I enjoy it. I
I
enjoy it.
would
That's what
Your
I like.
fans would love that.
I hope so. Like I don't know if that's the truth, but I think so. Uh,
Well,
you
if the gauge for it is response to songs on that we've kind of talked through and others that we didn't get time to talk through that are more acoustic and softer in nature as any indication, I think that would be really well received.
yeah, yeah. am excited about the idea, and I think that's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. It's just that it can't happen at the same time as Camelot or Seventh Wonder because it's just takes
Too much. Yeah.
all my energy and creativity, and I just want to lay down after those months and do nothing. But because it's visceral for me, it's writing music and recording music is visceral. Like it just takes it's a whole body experience.
So when you like when you come back off of a performance, you guys do you do the meet and greet stuff at the end of all of that? Or are you just too wiped
We do the meet and greet stuff before,
before?
yeah, and usually after a show, I'm wiped. Like I just sit and like
Yeah.
I I'm just like done for the day.
Yeah. That's not surprising to me. In seeing you perform a couple of times live, it's definitely sort of um, as you say, how would you call it? A full body experience?
Yeah, totally. Like it's just the whole everything from mind to body to it's just involved, and I feel like singing is very it's an emotional task.
Yeah,
It takes
definitely is.
yeah, it is, and you feel it after you sing. You're like, oh, like you can be happy, of course, or you can be totally drained. I'm usually drained because I it's just yeah, it's just a
Satisfied, but like definitely it's like a well earned tired.
yeah, yeah, I think so. And but then I'm a little bit of an introvert. Not it's not a little bit of an introvert. I'm an introvert, and so I kind of claim the back lounge for a couple hours after the shows when the bus is moving, and
Yeah,
just like steam my voice and blow in the straw and just sit in quiet or listening to some easy listening um, like I listen to a Swedish singer songwriter that is my favorite, and he doesn't sing a bunch of crazy melodies that make my larynx go up and down without singing. So it's more like storytelling, almost like talking, you know.
who
And
is it? Can
Lars Winnerbäck,
Okay.
and he's huge in Sweden, but only in Sweden because he sings in Swedish. And when I listen to music, especially when I want to relax, I listen to Swedish music because I don't have to. There's no filter.
Yeah,
No filter on it, and it just goes straight into my heart or my brain. I don't have to decipher anything or translate anything in real time. Uh,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah, so I just it gets it's like a home, like a coming home feeling a little bit.
Yeah.
And I listen to that, and I do my vocal cool down, and I sit alone. I sit alone there. If maybe Alex is practicing drums next to me, but because he's also a nerd, like he practices his drums and paradiddles and all that stuff in the back lounge, like at night, like 2, 3 in the morning. So, but yeah, that's kind of my routine, and then I usually go to bed 3, 4 in the morning.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then you guys travel mostly by bus or
yeah. For the tours in Europe and the States, we do uh, buses and or one bus, but so I mean, it's lot of people on a little space, on a little area,
yeah.
space. So I'm happy that I usually I can have the back lounge for myself a couple hours when everyone is going to bed, or is in the front lounge partying.
Just wind down. I'm gonna have to look up. I won't understand the language, but I'll have to look up your singer songwriter. Um,
Yeah, it's kind of Bob Dylan esque.
okay.
It's kind of like that thing. It's not the melodies that it focuses the lyrics and it's beautiful instrumentation.
Yeah.
Most of the time, very folky here and there, and I don't know. It just speaks to me.
Well, it's in that vein. I'm excited when the time permits for you to do a solo record that is softer and more acoustic. I think based on everything I've heard you do, in that vein. That you know, I love that, and I'm not the only one.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited, and I had a friend that got me into like music actually back in when I was 15, 16. And he was he is an amazing guitar player, and he wrote Swedish songs like cheeky songs for kids basically. But so I started doing that too. That's how got into music and picked up the guitar the first time. But then I started just writing my own songs in Swedish. Then I got picked up by this guy. He's like, because I started listening to like Sonata Arctica. That was like one of my first metal bands that I listened to, and Dream Theater, of course.
Sure.
Uh, I didn't know that I was gonna like progressive metal at all. It was not what I was listening to. I was listening to like Whitney Houston and uh, Michael Jackson. You know, that was where I was.
Yeah.
And then this music came along, and it was like crazy. You know, like
Yeah.
Dream Theater. It was Scenes from a Memory. That album for me. It was like The Spirit Carries On. That was the first song I heard, and I was like, that is so nice. If this is progressive metal, I like it.
Yeah.
You know, like because that was it's a ballad. So, and I was like, okay. And then I just loved that album from then on, and so that was really cool. And that's how I started. But that was late. Uh,
So you were 15 or 16, and you had a buddy who kind of introduced you to it, and you're still friends.
yeah, we're really good friends still, and we talk all the time. Yeah, he's in Sweden still, but we I wanted him to be a part of whatever I do solo wise, right?
Yeah.
So because he's an amazing guitar player, he thinks melodies the exact way, same way I am, um, and it'll be just very intuitive if we work together, uh, writing stuff, and I think yeah. So that was a way of paying him back for everything he did for me because he first of all he got me into this. Like I wouldn't be here without him, and second of all, it was uh, he recorded he recorded me on uh, Mercy Falls, the whole album.
Oh wow.
Um, he sang choirs when I was tired. Sometimes he would help out, like to get a different flavor in. Uh, he did the same thing uh, on a couple of songs for Tiara. He came just he called in sick from work and just came to me, lived with me for a week, and just pounded out harmonies. Like he's just a friend, and he's an amazing musician, and I want to pay my respect also by having him because he deserves to be on something, you know.
That's really cool. Is he doing music as a livelihood, or is he had to do something else to sort of sustain himself?
Yeah, no, he's not doing music as a he's an art director for a company, so he's very good. He did the artwork for The Great Escape and like all the stuff in there, and he did the artwork for Tiara.
Nice.
Um, so he does that. He shot our video for the inner enemy. He's just a guy. He just does a little bit of everything. Is you know,
Yeah.
and our photos, he took them, and he's just our go-to guy now, I guess.
Yeah. Very creative.
Very creative and kind of like a crazy genius in a way, you know.
Yeah. Well, that makes it that much more exciting to think about you guys doing something and you kind of pulling back a friend that helped you get started, and a
Totally.
guy who it sounds like he's extremely creative in his own right.
He is. I mean, uh, yeah. I mean, he would be if I would say anyone that has the same like uh, idea about music that I know. That's him. You know, we somehow we jive really well with basically better than anyone I've ever worked with, and we haven't really worked together yet, except for writing those Swedish songs in the beginning of the 2000s.
All
Yeah.
right, man. That's we're all going to hold you to it once you get your commitments done for Seventh Wonder and for Camelot.
Yeah, we'll see where this goes. I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean I love it all, but I'm like you a little bit. I do have a bit of a penchant for balladesque tunes where the voice gets to occupy more of the space in the song.
Yeah,
Um which isn't surprising cuz voice is my instrument, but I think
yeah,
a lot of people are like that.
I think so too. I mean, that's really, it's all about the song and the delivery of the song, and it's really hard sometimes to hear it over metal
Yeah.
music, to hear all the nuances that is in a vocal.
Yeah.
But and that's something else I thought I didn't know about myself. Like I thought, yeah, I'm a metal singer, I guess, you know. But then I went to this vocal coach of my wife, Cobra. My wife is Cobra Page, for anyone who doesn't know that already. And from the band, she had her she has had her band Cobra and the Lotus for forever.
Hasn't she also performed with you?
Yep, yep, she has.
Yeah.
Um, but I went to her vocal coach because she's an amazing singer, Cobra, and she said, "Like, come with me and see if that's something you want to do," because she knew I was in suffering a little bit with my voice, and I went there, and she's like, the first thing when I sang a little bit to the teacher was like, oh, like the reaction was like, huh, like that is very interesting. And I was like, that can't be good, like that's probably like, why are you even here? you know, or something like that. But she's like, wow, like, because I didn't even know that, but it's different voice types. And she said, you're a light lyric tenor. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't, I don't know what that means. I'm pretty sure you mean a heavy vocal, like heavy tenor. Now she meant light, and that means that I'm not even supposed to sing over heavy, like loud music, because I don't have a loud voice. I have a super articulate voice that you
Yeah.
want to hear a story from, but not necessarily can't overpower anything. Like, so anything I do that sounds really powerful, it's not very loud. It's it's just it's hard to say what, it's not coming from a loud point. It's coming from a texture and a emotional point.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean, and I think there that a lot of vocalists, and I include myself in this, um, they work too hard, they push too hard, and they don't end up having the necessary endurance for a tour, because they're requiring too much of themselves for the volume. And the beauty of metal, one of the beauties of metal, is you have all of this stuff to help amplify your voice. So if we take you as the example, when we see you live, you may be a light lyrical tenor, and we're hearing the subtle, you know, when I say subtle, I mean the softer, the lower, we're hearing that stuff. And then when you get these bigger notes, there's some energy in them, but you have all of the apparatus around you to help them be bigger. So I listened to a vocal takedown not too long ago of a Boston tune, and when you hear that track, you think, "Oh my gosh, that guy must be just pushing so hard and getting these notes." And when you hear the vocal isolation, it he's like not using any energy at all. And it's a real eye opener, I think, for vocalists. It was for me to realize, and you fit in this category, is that you're able to do all this stuff. It sounds it sounds metal. I mean, it's big, it's dynamic, it has all that stuff, but it doesn't require you to be shouting and screaming all the time.
Yep.
Um, and So I'm not surprised that she said that. Did you learn anything useful from her?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, it changed the way I warmed up, for example,
Okay.
and the way because I've never done scales. I've never done. It's intuitive for me when I do my ad libs and stuff. That's just very intuitive. It comes from.
Those runs. I was
Yeah,
going to ask you about that. You're really good at those.
Yeah, I think it's also one of my fortes. Like
Yeah.
that's something I brought when not a lot of other singers in the genre did it. Like
Yeah.
something I
You're
didn't
right.
hear.
No,
Uh,
you're absolutely right about that.
But now I hear it a little bit more and more, and I think people are incorporated more here and there, like the bluesy runs and or just runs in general. Um, but I love doing those because those are very authentic to who I am and what I listen to. Like I listen to Whitney Houston
Yeah.
and Mariah Carey, and those sang along to those tunes before I knew what metal was. You know, and that's all about the ad libs and the embellishments and stuff. And
Yeah.
so I love doing those. I don't do them as much in Camelot as in Seventh Wonder because in Seventh Wonder is just it's more of a you can go anywhere at any time.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's a little more on the new album for sure. Uh,
The new Camelot album.
yeah, it's a little more on there, and so kind of blend that in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I love doing that. Uh, those things feel very authentic to me as a singer, and I that those come natural. I don't even have to think about them.
Yeah.
I just do whatever, and I do them differently. Uh, like I ad lib them differently live, and I just do different things.
Oh,
Because
that's cool.
yeah, so I don't have like a certain one that I go to. You know, I just do them what I hear in my head or what comes out at the moment. But so that's where I'm not prepared. Like that's just me winging it all the time. But
No, I love that though. It gets little surprises for your audience each night.
yeah, and
Get
hope
to
they didn't do it today. That's also a surprise. Yeah,
but then this vocal coach, she gave you some useful
yeah,
warm ups. It sounds like.
she did, and she it was this thing that we do that I still do today is you do like one note, you start low on a low E or something for a guy, and then you do all the vowels on one note.
Oh,
Then
interesting.
and then because then you kind of you learn to place the vowels on each note, like in a way where we don't have to strain yourself, and then
Yeah.
you try to go as high as you can without going into belting. So if you go high, you go, you know, you have your um I guess it's kind of the belting voice when you're low, but you don't push it. And then you go up, and then it's higher you go, the more you have to mix
Right.
the voice. And just try to keep the volume the same, and just blend in the mixed voice. And you do
Yeah.
that all the way up to you can't do it without cracking, and then you go down. And that's one of the things I learned because then suddenly you find the mixed notes easier where you would normally want to push. You can find that because there's like this. If this is the falsetto, and this is for you guys that sing, this is of your falsetto, and this is your low register. There's not only falsetto and low register. There's this gray scale of notes and textures between here
Right.
that you can find, but it's really hard to find it if you don't warm that up. Like
Yeah.
you know, you gotta fool yourself to find those sometimes, if that makes sense.
No, it's part of the value I found in kind of moving up and trying to keep the note placed without pushing to get to the note or to the pitch is it does kind of you ease into this mixed voice so that when you get those upper notes you're able to swell in and out of volume, but you're not having to push to belt.
Yeah.
um that's not the most articulate way to put it, but as you and the way I got to it is doing a lot of exercises that push the voice into the mask of the face and really getting the resonance, almost too much, just as a point of really getting it there. And it's interesting to me because some of the guys that trained with my same trainer were part of the big explosion in grunge around here, and I can
Yeah.
hear exactly how they're placing the voice from these vocal exercises.
Okay.
Um, So guys like Lane Staley, he trained with the same guy I trained with. His tone is just exactly one of those exercises. It's remarkable.
Right.
Um, so I know what you're talking about in terms of the value of kind of moving up from the lower register up, but trying to keep it even.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that's and so before that, how were you kind of preparing for a show?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I've always had tried to figure it out because I said I didn't go to a vocal coach to tell me what to do. So I was just had to figure it out myself. So I did a little bit of this and it worked, and a little bit of that when that didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Like depending on if I was feeling fresh or tired, I would do it differently.
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore because now I trust the process that I have already. Like
Yeah.
I do a few exercises, blow in the straw, and then I have a few songs that I sing along to without pushing. Uh, so I would like maybe have four songs, but I don't do the whole song. I just do like a part of the song,
Yeah.
and I make sure I don't go into pushing ever. Uh, so I try to condition my voice before I go on stage because what I did before was like I pushed before the show a lot, just to make sure I could,
Yeah.
and then you're kind of like a little bit burnt already when you go into the first song. You know, I'm not. I listened to James LaBrie's interview with you, and I'm the same way. I don't sing the best in the first song. I try to contain my voice the first couple of songs and let it out over time, rather than go because if I go full force the first song with all the excitement and all the instruments and all everything, it's really hard to go really excited from the get go.
Yeah.
I could blow my voice out in the first song,
Yeah.
and that's happened before to me. So I'm very conscious of where I place the vowels in the first couple songs, uh, and where I so I don't push it too hard because push it too hard in the beginning, it'll tax me in the end. So kind of like a marathon runner, you can't sprint the first kilometer because you'll not make it, right? You won't make the marathon.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and the other value of, trying to exercise some moderation, for pacing is that, I and James said this when we spoke, is your voice actually as a consequence of the singing itself, it warms up. You actually can get stronger over the course of your set.
yeah,
But if you through excitement or whatever, if you go too hard too fast, I think you spend too much of your vocal endurance.
yeah, you do. I mean, for me, I know people that can do it, and the people have those asbestos voices that can do anything. I'm not one of those. Like,
Yeah,
I need to think about what I'm doing, and especially if I'm on a tour, like one off, it doesn't really matter. But if there's a if there's a tour, definitely you have to pace yourself, and you have to think about not if I feel really good, I'll warm up less because I
yeah,
think of it as the tour. How much am I singing over the course of a tour? Not how much I sing in like just today. So I'm thinking like if I'm really in good shape, I can burst out singing anytime now. I warm up less. I warm up, but just the necessary.
yeah,
If I'm feeling rough, I warm up longer, but slower.
yeah,
If that makes sense. And then I also make sure, especially when I not actually only when I'm tired. Anytime I am adamant about um also warming down, cooling down,
yeah,
because
yeah.
that
That's
I want when I'm done, I want my larynx to be back normal and the voice relaxed.
yeah,
If I stress out, if I go to bed and it's still up here, uh, so I stay up until I've done all my exercises multiple times. The larynx is back in its, and I don't sound strained anymore.
yeah. I totally know what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
then I feel okay with sleeping, but I don't sleep until I get that feeling.
yeah. Yeah, it's a really fascinating process. I've even noted that I start to pay attention to people's speaking voice because I think it's true that there's some people who their natural speaking voice is more song-like. They more naturally are more resonant and they speak more up in the mask of the face. I'm not like that naturally. And so part of the process for me is kind of doing that. Where there's some vocalists who just because that's where their voice is already at, I don't think they require quite as much um, warm up to get the voice placed.
Yep.
And I don't have any physiology background, but I can give you scores of examples of vocalists who like are great, great, great singers. And some of them have to do more of a process the way we've described, and some of them don't. I don't know if this is the asbestos voices you're talking about, but they just because their voice is more song-like naturally, even when they speak, it seems it's a natural advantage they have.
Yeah, I think so. And I was never able to wake up and sing in the morning. Like
Yeah.
I was so jealous at everyone that could just like get out of bed and sing right away. I was like, how is that even possible? But then I found out, like, something I can do to help that. I didn't know that I was eating all this stuff that
Mm,
made me my voice all like inflamed. Like, because if you're eating stuff that you're not really tolerating, you don't have to be allergic to it, but you can eat some stuff makes the mucous membranes swell up and you know like for example dairy, gluten, sugar.
yeah.
Um, and I ate a lot of eggs. Like, oh my god, I've eaten so much eggs. I'm sorry to all the chickens out there, or all the hens out there, and the chickens, but and the ones who never got to be chickens. But I've eaten so much eggs, and I think I'm really sensitive to eggs, so that's why I couldn't like barely couldn't speak in the morning when I was waking up, and I didn't know why. Then my beautiful wife, she told me maybe you're sensitive to eggs and all these other things that I'm eating, dairy, and so I tried to get off of it, and it's like night and day. It's like
Really? Wow.
it's I really was affected. I was like, it's not possible. I can't wake up and sing. It's impossible. Something must be wrong. And then she she introduced me to this, and that's what I do now on tour. I eat really healthy. No, none of the things that I just mentioned, and I try to work out, and I do my exercises, and I prepare before the tour. That's the way I get through the tour. Uh,
Yeah.
Honest to God, I couldn't just go like abuse myself like I
Go get on
did in
tour.
the past. No,
So the one of the central food groups you avoid is dairy? Is I
dairy, gluten,
Okay.
so like pasta, bread. Uh,
Yeah.
if anything, I have like uh, gluten free something. But I try to not do that. And I stick to rice, potatoes, um, and do eat like high protein foods, but I don't eat eggs,
Yeah.
uh, and I don't have sugar, uh, like refined sugar. So it's really boring. It's shitty life, but
Yeah. The menu's not so big.
oh, it's been the biggest challenge over the past couple of tours has been to get the tour manager to not bring pizza.
I know, and part of it from the tour manager's perspective is pizza's easy.
So
Um,
and good and tasty.
yeah, for sure. But doing something where you're trying to stay high protein and low carbs and low gluten,
Yeah, it's
low, yeah,
it's yeah, it's been a few hiccups, but they try their best, and I really appreciate that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's really fascinating to hear how you prepare and maintain yourself on a tour. When you're off tour, do you kind of whatever?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes I just eat everything that someone puts in front of me. Almost. I don't eat red meat or pork since a while, but a few years. But I I yeah, like ice cream, chocolate. I'm a junkie when it comes to those things.
So I'm curious now. If you're not eating eggs and you're not eating pork or red meat, what's your major source of protein?
Again, I'm sorry to all the chickens and the yeah,
Poultry?
poultry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly that and fish, white fish, anything that
Okay.
flies or swims. I usually eat, and stay away from pasta. So rice and potatoes, salad,
Yeah.
fruits. And so yeah, I have sugar, I have fruits, but fruits at least have fiber in them usually,
Yeah.
so they won't just go out in your bloodstream without any
There's
process.
nutrition.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm usually very lean when I come from a tour. Like I don't have a lot of fat left,
Yeah.
uh, because and I can see it on my face always. Like now I can see I haven't been on tour, but I'm trying to eat the same way now, but I have a cheat day every week. So I eat like on Saturdays. I just like I get a shovel and I shovel everything in, like you know.
Well, I'm assuming that you had to kind of really build your physique when you were a firefighter, because those guys can't show up a fire weak and small, right?
Yeah, I mean, no, I guess you'll be surprised though. Uh, it's actually not so much about strength. It's more about endurance, and you can be kind of small.
Yeah.
But I just always loved working out and feeling strong and being. That's and how I saw myself as a man. Like how I grew up and wanted to be. Like my dad is a bigger guy, and he never worked out, but he was always strong, and I looked up to him.
Yeah.
So I think that's the image I just it got passed on to me, and that's how I feel good. I feel good when I'm physically strong and able to do things.
Yeah.
Um,
So you have a workout regimen now?
yeah, and it's been really good the last month and a half, so because we have a gym right next to us here. But yeah, I've basically never stopped working out. It's just when you're sometimes when you're on tour, it's a little hard, but now we actually we got me and Oliver, we invested in a barbell with some weights last 2 tours ago. So we still have it every time we're in the States. We load it into the bus and we take it out in the parking lots.
Nice.
So that's actually, I mean, that's good. It's good.
Yeah, man.
Keeps your voice in check. You know,
Yeah, that's a really good point actually. I've had vocalists contact me for just any tips. Not that I'm a vocal coach. And one of the first things I usually tell them is what you just said, is that there's an overall sort of um, body awareness that it helps. Like it's very hard to be drastically out of shape and show up and give a good performance vocally.
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you're right, and that's why many people they run before a show, or they
Yeah.
do something physical, jumping jacks, or I do a little bit of that too, like I like high knees or jumping jacks, just to get the body going,
Yeah.
get the blood flowing everywhere. Because I just that helps. Just that helps to open up the lungs and open up the voice, and it relaxes the vocal cords a little bit. Unless you do really heavy lifting,
Uh-huh.
that can be detrimental. Because I got when I got that um, injury in my vocal cord, that's something I couldn't do. I couldn't lift heavy. He told me you shouldn't lift anything heavy for basically anytime you lift heavy, you close your vocal cords, to keep the air pressure in your
Mhm.
abdomen, and it pushes on your because it's a big pressure trying to get out when you hold your breath,
Right.
and it pushes on your vocal folds and vocal cords in a bad way, like screaming, and it has the same effect as screaming. Uh, so I can feel that when I do squats really heavy or when I do anything and I try to sing right after, my voice is kind of broken a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but if I do cardio or light exercise, it just gets better. So that's something for you guys out there. Um, that really heavy lifting is not good for the voice. Uh, especially not around the time that you're performing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good advice. I've done some lifting. My whenever I was doing that, I like at college, I took some courses. They really tried to get us into the mode of breathing out on the lift part and breathing in on the down part, and avoid sort of the holding of breath for compression. But that's hard because the instinct is to do that in order to, you know, get the lift going.
Totally. And I think I do that naturally, like instinctively, when if there's a really heavy weight. Uh, and also another thing, it's not only that pressure, it's only also um, the muscles around gets
Flexing.
if are flexing,
Yeah.
and you can feel almost tired in your neck like after. And just something to keep in mind that around like performances and stuff. I feel it a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all these things you're describing that where you're exercising the neck muscles and things that can sort of affect those when you're going to need all of that energy and endurance for the show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And
Yeah. These are you know, nuances of taking care of the voice that don't get talked about very often.
not at all. I'm happy you brought it up.
Well, it's good to hear it from a working professional musician, like some of the ways you're caring for the voice. And I know, of course, voices are different, so techniques and approaches are different. But increasingly, the folks I talk to who are having to do rigorous touring and who are singing music with some athleticism in it have some sort of process that is a blend of the things we're talking about. And if you draw the Venn diagram, many of them are the same.
Yeah,
So it's, you know, which is good news for aspiring vocalists, because there's sort of a roadmap for things to do, you know, to build endurance and stuff into your voice. Um,
totally.
but I've kept you way past time, my friend.
Oh,
It's
it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No, this has been awesome. I'm a fan of the band. I really I'm a fan of the way you approach music, which I can't say about all of the musicians I know. I'm happy for the success that you're having. I'm happy that it's on a trajectory, an upward trajectory. Like not all careers are that way. Sometimes there's a people land hard with that debut record, and then, you know, your career is going in the opposite direction. It started really well, but and one of the things I was trying to tease out there is so many of the things you've learned over time continue to be applicable, or that you do apply them as you go forward, whether it's a narrative sense or using the various techniques we've talked about to express the music. Um, so yeah, I'm excited for all the music we get from you over the next couple of years.
Thanks a lot.
Uh,
That means a lot. I mean, at least I have one that's gonna listen.
I'll be there. And you guys are, I mean, usually come through Seattle area. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that almost every tour we've been at almost. Yeah.
I saw you. Well, I saw you down near the the stadium, and then I saw you at the Neptune.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah. Well, I will. Me and a bunch of my buddies will be sure we're there when you guys get back out on the road next time.
Cool. Just make sure you have a note, like you have a notebook. I can see you writing in your notebook.
Critique. Here's my critique.
Yeah, it's great, but you know that little thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that worked, Tommy. Try again.
Yeah.
No.
I think I'm my hardest critic anyway, to be honest with you.